Hello ladies and gentlemen, Nick here and welcome to my Doctor Who Season 8 ranking, where I rank all 5 Doctor Who Season 8 stories. And the stories are Terror of the Autons, The Mind of Evil, The Claws of Axos, Colony in Space, and The Daemons, or The Demons. And yeah, so Season 8 was also a pretty good season. Season 7 was a great season, but Season 8 was also a pretty good season. And no 7-parters this round, thankfully. But however, despite that, there was one pretty shit story and one that I thought was alright. I didn't love it. I thought it was okay. But the other 3 ranged from amazing to one of my favourites of all time. So let's get down to this list, starting off with number 5, which is of course the shit one. And if you've seen my reviews of this season's stories, then you'll probably be aware which one it is. It is, of course, the shitfest that is Colony in Space. Now, so far up to this point, I've only really ranted on 2 stories, the Space Pirates and this one, even though I also gave the Dominators a 3 out of 10, but I didn't exactly rant on it. I didn't exactly rant on the Romans or the Ice Wars. I mean, might have ranted on some bits, but I didn't rant as a general review, didn't generally rant on about the story. But this story and the Space Pirates, I would say especially this one, even though Space Pirates is worse, I basically just tried doing a rant, basically, and yeah. Yeah, this story, if you see my review, I can't stand it. I just really can't. I really can't stand it. I just want to watch the Master trying to get this Doomsday weapon. Otherwise, just don't bother with that story, as then mentioned in the Daemons. I mean, Ollie Pajak said this in his review. The Master may as well not be there, and yeah, he has a point. If we're not going to focus on that, then we'll focus more on this colony stuff after the Master turns up. Then yeah, it makes sense for him not to be there. Otherwise, please focus on the Master stuff, because that's what I wanted to watch more of. But instead, it kept going back to the colony. So you either do more with the Master or don't bother having him at all. Just have the Time Lord send the Doctor on a mission to sort out this colony stuff. Hey, they're going to do that with Curse of Peladon and the mutants. No, the Master's not in either of those 2 stories, so it could work. And other times they'll send him to do some of the stuff they need him to do, like in Genesis of the Daleks and the Brain of Morbius. So, So Colony in Space, you could have either had the Master have a more pivotal part, at least in the second half of the story, or don't bother having him. And on top of that, you just got a really shit story on top of it. So I don't care about that story. I want to see the Master finding the Doomsday weapon. So, Colony in Space, can't bloody stand it. Though the scenes with the Master are great. They're one of the few redeeming qualities, and honestly the standout highlights of the story alongside Brigadier Lethbridge Stewart's scenes, and some of the world building from episode 1 is pretty decent. But overall, just not very good, not a good story. Number 4, this one is actually a good story, but there's a subplot that gets in the way of stopping it from being a better story, and this is The Claws of Axos. Now, the subplot that gets in the way, as I've already mentioned, is the Chin subplot. He's trying to take over. He's trying to have UNIT arrested and sidelined so he can take over. It's just his motivations are left, right, and centre. They're all over the place. First, he wants to blow up he wants this meeting. Then he wants to blow up the Axon ship when they make the appearance, and then he decides to go with their deal and take some of the Axonite, and then he tries to try and get UNIT out of the way, and then he's just out of the way for a bit, and then he's just not doing anything. He's pointless. He's unnecessary, and yeah, he's a shit character, and it's a shit subplot. So that going away, and it was gritting my teeth, especially in part 2 when he had a lot more involvement. I think the Doctor may have insulted him at one point, but not as much as the Professor from Inferno. So yeah, he didn't even go around and say, "You, sir, are a nitwit," to this guy. So yeah, that was a highlight from Inferno, in a story where which was a much better story, and that had a bit more highlights in it. But other than Chin subplot, The Claws of Axos is pretty decent. It's got a pretty decent story. I actually get to see the Master doing shit in the second half instead of focusing on this subplot back every now and again. And I think the Doctor, I think at this point, the third Doctor channels a bit more of his inner Hartnell Doctor. I mean, something that comes later on in the Demons, but I think he's got a bit more of his Hartnell Doctor, making a resurface a few times in this one. And the Axons are actually pretty okay, and the plans decent, and the organic stuff, that makes sense, I suppose. At least they tried anyway. But the Claws of Axos, it just didn't impress me as much as the other 3 stories that I'm going to be ranking, and it's mainly due to that Chin subplot. I think I would still put this one at this position anyway, but it probably would have been a little bit higher. I would have regarded it a little bit higher, or a little bit more, if it wasn't for that Chin subplot. So there you go. But it's not as bad as Colony in Space, by no means. Okay, we're on to the brilliant stuff now with number 3. Number 3 is a really enjoyable and really fun and entertaining start to the season, which just kicks off everything really in a really fun way and is a great sequel to the previous season's opener. This is Terror of the Autons. Great start for the season, and it's a great start for Joe, Captain Yates, and the Master. I think all 3 do go on to be better in the later stories of the season, and in later stories of the era, and in the Master. Well, yeah, if we stick to the Delgado Master, then yeah, this era. But overall, it's a great story. It's got some great stuff. I like how it's very Master centered, but it doesn't forget about the Autons as much. I think the Autons are put to the side a little bit, despite being Terror of the Autons. But you know, we did have them in Spearhead from Space, so it's not too bad. And it's just a shame that they wouldn't come back again until 2005, though they were supposed to in 1986. But that season was replaced by Trial of a Time Lord. And despite a major appearance in 2010, it wasn't their own story, and we haven't really had them since. On screen anyway. There has been expanded media, but we haven't had them since 2010. Chris Chibnall, can we have Series 12 open with an Auton story, please? It doesn't have to be like Rose or Spearhead. It could be like Terror of the Autons. The Doctor just knows about the Autons, explains it to the companions. They get on and trying to save the day, just like they do in this story. But anyway, Terror of the Autons, great start, and really fun, really entertaining, just lots of great stuff. It's followed by an even better story, though. Number 2 is The Mind of Evil. Don Houghton, the writer of Inferno, returns for this story, similar to Robert Holmes returning for Terror of the Autons, and I think Don Houghton does another great job of putting the Doctor having to save the world when it's in jeopardy. This time, the Master is trying to use a nuclear weapon to blow up London, and he's also built this machine that kills people by using their deadly fears and bringing them to life in a way, or at least in their minds. And it's really great. It's a really good story. And you've also got this international diplomatic stuff going on, and and also a prison riot, attempted prison break riot, seize control. So it's got some great stuff, and it manages to balance the story pretty well and does some really good stuff with it. And Delgado he's up his game, as is Katie Manning, and the stuff at Dover Castle is amazing. So, Mind of Evil. But my number 1 story is probably a story that's it's a story that's one of my favourites of all time, possibly in my top 10 or just bordering it. And this is The Daemons, or The Demons. Despite some comments the Doctor says to Joe a few times over, and I think this is what my friend Ollie Pajak, aka Mr. TARDIS 11, was talking about in his review. But besides some of that, this is an amazing story and has some great stuff going for it. It's really fun, really entertaining, great side characters. Bok, I forgot to mention in my review, he is amazing. I still haven't put my DVD away. He's this guy, this statue thing with his tongue sticking out. Oh, that's funny. In a more serious and high stakes story, in this one's case, it's still funny to see that the gargoyle has his tongue out all the time. So that's cool. And yeah, it's fun, and he still brings some good stuff to the story, and plenty of great scenes, and it's perfectly paced at 5 parts. I thought the other stories were perfectly paced, apart from Colony in Space, obviously. I think that one doesn't even deserve to be 3 parts, let alone 6. God, I think 3 would have been enough. Maybe 2, maybe. Oh, fucking hell. But the others, I think, work at their respective parts, and I'm glad this story was a 5-parter. Otherwise, I think it would have been over too quickly with 4 parts. I mean, they could have tried, but you would have had to cut down on some of the stuff. And if you went to 6 parts, I think they'd be making it too long. So it's a pretty good, decent. It's the perfect length, and yeah, it works really well and does some great stuff. You could watch it in just over 2 hours, 2 hours, 2 minutes and 34 seconds, I think it was. So yeah, brilliant story. Loved quite a lot of it. The only thing is, besides losing it picks, is I didn't quite enjoy it on the last time round I watched it, but I have enjoyed it on. It's basically the blink of the Pertwee era. I loved it. I love it, but there have been occasions where I haven't enjoyed it as much as I used to. But there'll probably be a time where I enjoy it a lot more in the future. And I have explained that some of my other favourites have done this before. Day of the Doctor, Remembrance of the Daleks, Ark in Space at some points. And the TV movie, I have to admit, was in my top 10 originally, but it's now dropped out because I didn't quite enjoy that as much on the previous viewing, and that's dropped down to, and it's not even a 10. I would have given it a 10, but I think my love for it is mostly down to the music, so I think that's dropped out. And Daemons has dropped in because of that, probably, but still, it's still a really great, it's still an amazing story, and I really love it. So, there you go. And so that's my ranking. Thank you for watching. I'll just go through the list again. Number 5 was Colony in Space, or Colony in Shit. Number 4 was The Claws of Axos. Number 3 was Terror of the Autons. Number 2 is The Mind of Evil. And number 1 is The Daemons, or The Demons. So that's it for my Season 8 ranking. Thank you for watching. Next time, we start Season 9 with Day of the Daleks, the resolution that came 47 years before. That story, basically resolution of the John Pertwee era, because Daleks on New Year's Day, basically, and another 3 weeks after that, because that was a 4-part story, Day of the Daleks. So yeah, New Year's Day story with the Daleks, or in this case, episode, part of the story. So that's why I called it the resolution of the John Pertwee era, and it's also a fun one. So, resolution is fun. So is this. And I'll be reviewing both the original and the special edition versions. I'll be watching the original version on one night, and then I'll watch the special edition on another night, and then the review will be after that. So anyway, thank you for watching this ranking, and I'll see you guys next time. Goodbye. Don't forget to click below to subscribe to the official Nicholas Payne Retro YouTube channel. Colony in Space. I'm going to say it again. Colony. And this is The Claws of Axos. Number 2 was The Mind Robber. Sorry, that's wrong. And number 1 is The Daemons, or The Demons, or The Daemons, or How I Stopped Worrying and Learned to Love the Daemons. I'm joking. So yeah, Dalek New Year